Hey everyone, in this video, I'm excited to share with you a new feature on the WayScript platform. What we'll be talking about in this video is the new clone from GitHub feature that allows you to clone public and private repositories from GitHub directly into a WayScript layer. I'll show you how we can get this set up and working in just a few minutes. Let's dive in. So getting started, I'm already signed in to a WayScript account and within a workspace. At this point, I want to take a GitHub repository that is publicly hosted on GitHub and clone it directly into a WayScript layer. I can do that by clicking New Layer, choose the GitHub URL option, and make sure Public is selected. At this point, all I have to do is go and find a GitHub repository that I want to clone, click this code button and HTTPS and copy this endpoint. Going back to WayScript, I will paste that in, name my layer, so Flask example GitHub, and I will click on Create Layer. And it's as simple as that to copy that code from GitHub into a WayScript layer. We'll give this just a few seconds to write all these files for us, but this is an awesome feature because now we can have all of our code hosted on GitHub where it probably already lives, and we can pull it directly into a layer, host it, and have all kinds of tools to work with that code in just a few seconds. So once that finishes copying all the code, you see that I'm inside of the layer that has all those files. And now I'm able to work with this inside of a WayScript layer. Pretty cool. So that's just a public repository and how easy it is to clone it and start working with it inside of WayScript. So now let's talk about private repositories and how we can get set up so we can clone those as well. To get started cloning private repositories, we'll need to generate a GitHub SSH key to do that. We have step-by-step instructions on this process. We'll click Home. There's a drop-down menu at your workspace selection and go to Settings. Within Settings, there is a new tab called Version Control. We will select it. And as you see, I've gone through this process before, but we will go through it again in this video. So we'll need to fill in all these blanks following these instructions. So our first step will be to open this guide from GitHub to create new SSH keys. Depending on if you're in a Windows environment or a Mac one, there are different instructions, so be sure to be on the correct instructions to follow the appropriate commands. I am on a Windows machine. Don't worry if you're on a Mac. The instructions are very close to the same. Just follow the slightly different guide. In the Windows instructions, I will copy our first command. I will open up a command prompt. And we will follow these instructions. So to generate a key, we will use that command. We will execute this. We will have to change the email address. This will be your GitHub email address. Once we have that, we will hit return, and this will say generating a private and public key pair. Our first prompt will be where to save this file. If you just want to have it in the default location, you can press return again, and that is what I will do in this video. In my case, I've already gone through this setup, so it's asking me to overwrite these. You might not have this question, so if you don't worry. In my case, I will overwrite my values. Enter a passphrase. This is a optional argument that we can include if we want to. I will in this case. So I'm just going to put WSSSH. I'll do the same thing for the second prompt. And we'll make sure that we remember that value because we'll need it later on in this setup. So once we hit return through all those questions, you see that we now have this screen here and our keys are generated. So we'll put the command prompt or the terminal on a different screen for the moment and go back to WayScript. So here we have a GitHub private key option. We'll skip that for now. Our passcode will be the one that we just put in. So WSSSH if you followed along with me. Our email and our username. So those are both from GitHub and you can get those very easily. Now our private key, we'll use a command to get that. Within the WayScript documentation, this is linked down below. We have this command here. I'm on Windows, so I will copy this one. We will pull back over my command prompt and I will paste it in. So if you use the default file location, then all it will be is this value here. So we have two files in that directory that we made, a private key and a public key. We want the private one in this example. So that will just be ID ed 25519 without the .pub at the end. The .pub at the end is the file for the public key and we want the private one. So we will hit return. If you get back something similar that you can't find the file path, I recommend just grabbing the entire file path from here and trying again. Using the full path to the file, you see that we don't get back any errors, so we've copied it over into our clipboard. And now all we have to do is go into WayScript and post this in. So we'll click on save and it will save this for us. A final step here is that we will need to go into our GitHub account, then go to settings, and we will need to put in our new SSH key. We can title this whatever we want. So I will just say 2 here, authentication key, and this will be our public key. So pulling back over a terminal or a command prompt, we'll run the same command, and this time we'll put .pub at the end of the file to get our public key. Now that we have that copied, we will paste it in here, and we will add this SSH key. With all that taken care of, we should now be able to clone a private repository. So we will go into settings, new layer, GitHub URL, private. How this works is you will go to a private repository, you will click on code and go to SSH. You'll copy this value and paste it in to this blank here. We'll name it whatever. And what that will do is load in all of our private code into a repository so we can start using it within a WayScript layer. We'll give it just a few seconds to finish loading and we will open this up. So as you see, it copied in all the information from that private repository using my private SSH keys. So if you have any questions about any of this, please don't hesitate to let us know and we'll be happy to help. Until next time.